Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, pretty much every single rhino impeacher is down. Mrs. Butler, or Mrs. Butler, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce her name, losing the primary election to Joe Kent in the final hour. Nearly every single Donald Trump rhino impeacher has either resigned, has been gerrymandered by Democrats, like we saw with John McCain wannabe Adam Kinzinger, or has been primaried and got absolutely BTFO'd by the Trump candidate. Well, folks, there's one very key impeacher who still remains. You might even call her the impeacher. Of course, we're talking about Liz Cheney. Liz is next on the chopping block. I believe the Wyoming Republican primary is next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And the closer and closer we get to Liz Cheney's re-election day, the more money Liz Cheney spends on her ads attacking Donald Trump, even being as desperate to summon her father Dick Cheney, well, the more rhino and Democrat money she spends on her re-election, and the closer we get to her election day, her primary election day, the worse it gets for Liz Cheney. Just the other day hitting her all-time low, now apparently trailing her Republican contender, Harriet Hageman, by nearly 30 percentage points. Not even close. One of the biggest political embarrassments in American history, Liz Cheney continues to prove herself to be. Whether it's her behavior, her lies, her slander, the betrayal of her constituents, her actual career, and all of that now snowballing into possibly one of the greatest incumbent primary defeats ever. Let me show you guys what's going on here. And then of course we'll do some more analysis and I will continue to preach that the polls are wrong. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so Wyoming Public Media writes, Hageman slightly increases lead in the latest US House poll. They say that Hageman slightly increases her lead. Well, not exactly. Cheney now trails Trump-backed Republican challenger by nearly 30 points in new poll. I wouldn't say that's a slight increase. I think the last poll that I saw was 22%. Well, that just ballooned up to, I believe, 29%. Take a look at this. Representative Liz Cheney is trailing her Republican challenger in Wyoming's upcoming GOP primary by nearly 30 points, according to the new University of Wyoming survey. Among Wyoming residents likely to vote in the state's Republican primary on Tuesday, 57% support Trump-endorsed Harriet Hageman versus just 28% who back Ms. Cheney, with 10% undecided and the rest backing several other candidates. The race for the Republican nomination appears to be a referendum on Cheney, as it usually is when an incumbent seeks re-election, says Jim King, a professor of political science at the University of Wyoming. The biggest drag on the incumbent congresswoman is that she is polling at about 15% among registered Republicans in the deep red state, which hasn't elected a Democrat to the US Congress in more than 40 years and hasn't backed one for president for longer than that. Of the respondents who said that they will vote for Ms. Cheney, 66% say it's an expression of support for her. Of those who say that they will vote for another candidate, just 29% say it's a support of that person versus 44% say that their vote is in opposition to Ms. Cheney. Roughly half of the state's population of registered Democrats likely to vote in the primary season say they will vote in the Republican primary. Of them, 98% support Ms. Cheney. An absolute clown show. And it shows you the racket that Liz Cheney's currently running. I mean, Democrat votes in Wyoming are basically like throwing your vote away, and so Liz is currently running a grift to get Democrat registered voters to switch parties. She's apparently got nearly half of them to switch over and vote for her. I haven't delved into the voter registration numbers, but it's certainly a very cynical strategy. We'll have to see if it pays off, but her support and her approval, I'd assume without Democrats identifying as Republicans or without Democrats registering as Republicans, would probably be sub 20%. And she's probably going to get absolutely smoked in the primary, even with Democrats switching over to vote for her. An absolute laughingstock and embarrassment. Meanwhile, she continues to be the most popular Republican. You might be a little bit confused by that statement, but what I mean by that is she's the Republican who gets the most airtime. You see her face all over the mainstream media as if she's some sort of hero, constantly hearing her name and just how brave and incredible she is, which gives you a little bit of a glimpse into the mainstream media grift and racket, and just how the deck is stacked against Republican voters in the first place. Yet despite all of it, she is going to be out of a job pretty soon. Of course, it doesn't really matter. Liz Cheney, just like the rest of these corrupt Washington deep state actors, has somehow, over the last 5 years, managed to make an absolute fortune while merely existing in government. Take a look at this. Liz Cheney's net worth has ballooned by 600% while serving in Congress. Republican Congresswoman from Wyoming and January 6 Select Committee Vice Chair Liz Cheney has become exponentially richer while serving in Congress compared to when she started in 2017. She was elected the year Donald Trump got elected. That was 5.5 years ago, or almost 6 years ago. And now, according to Breitbart, Cheney's net worth has exploded by 600% while serving in office, as she started with an estimated $7 million, and her current net worth is estimated at clocking over $44 million. This is what I mean by Liz Cheney is a corrupt deep state Washington grifter. How is that even possible? I mean, what is she investing in? What is she doing? Turning $7 million into 44 is a nearly impossible feat for even some of the greatest of investors. Not to mention, how does she do it while serving a role in government? It's impossible to believe that she's that productive. What businesses has she created? What services has she provided? What innovation has she brought to the world to make so many millions upon millions of dollars? I mean, it's absolutely unreal. 2017 wasn't that long ago. I mean, the stock market, generic markets since 2017 have basically doubled, so you're looking at a 2x gain if you were invested in the S&P or something like that. But Liz Cheney just manages a 6x, and that's her net worth. That's after taxes. At least that's my assumption. It's completely unbelievable. But I guess no wonder she's fighting so hard to defend the establishment and perpetuate the status quo. But anyways, folks, Liz Cheney is next on the chopping block in another massive victory for Trump-backed candidates. And one point that I really want to continue to make here, folks, the Democrats keep sticking by their strategy that Trump-style America First candidates are unelectable, and with the most recent Democrat, quote, wins, with heavy sarcasm, they think they stand a chance heading into 2022. Look, I have no crystal ball, so I don't know for sure, but from my perspective, not a chance. You look at the RCP average, and Democrats, of course, have been closing in, but the polling average has always overstated Democrat leads significantly in some election seasons by 6 percentage points. And here's the kicker: enthusiasm. All the metrics that we have access to right now are showing an increase in Republican voter enthusiasm. The most recent YouGov poll that has Democrats up by a couple percentage points shows that Republicans are leading by plus 10 percentage points in extreme enthusiasm. And then if we take that metric and look at individual states in the primary elections, specifically looking at turnout, we compare 2022 to 2018. Again, it's really not looking good for Democrats. Minnesota revised 99% reporting. 2018, 905,000 Democrats showed up to vote. In 2022, 764,000 showed up to vote. That's a projected turnout compared to 2018 by negative 16% for Democrats and plus 2 for Republicans. Interactive Polls has been looking at the same data. Wisconsin primary turnout, Democrats are down 8%, GOP is up 52% in the primaries. Minnesota, GOP's up 24%, Democrats down 6%, and the overall primary turnout, Republicans are up 20% or 19%, and Democrats are down 5%. So when Democrats link a poll and tell you that your candidate is unelectable, well, your initial reaction should be not so fast. I mean, just take a look at this. Kari Lake, after dominating her election versus Mrs. Robson, carrying every single county in the state of Arizona, everyone kept saying Kari Lake cannot take on Katie Hobbs. Well, the most recent poll that we have from American Viewpoint shows Kari Lake at 46% and Katie Hobbs at 47%, with Kari Lake carrying the Hispanic vote by 11 points in the state of Arizona, theoretically being within 1 point of Katie Hobbs. That's a statistical tie. It could go really any which way considering the margin of error. And then factoring in on top of that Republicans are leading on every single issue and are leading big time when it comes to voter enthusiasm. My view when it comes to the current Democrat copium, again, is one sentence: not so fast, leftoids. I don't think it's gonna happen. But of course the response would be, but what about my Inflation Reduction Act? My major legislative win? Well, again, not so fast. Let's go back to YouGov poll data, which is the most preferential polling outlet for Democrats right now. Do you think that this $369 billion climate and energy bill will increase or decrease inflation? 42% believe that it will increase inflation. And by the way, most of that is coming from Democrats, but when you look at Republicans and independents, 72% of Republicans believe it will increase, with only 2% believing it'll decrease, and 41% of independents believe that it will increase inflation, with only 7% believing it will decrease. It's not the legislative win Democrats think it is. I think at the end of the day, voter enthusiasm will reign supreme heading into 2022. Slow down, Democrats, you're getting a little too excited. I'm sensing a little bit too much hopium and copium. You may be right, but you just don't want to get too excited. Heed my warning. You don't want to set yourself up for disappointment, I guess is basically what I'm trying to say. But of course, this is just political and polling analysis. We'll just have to see what happens on election day. That's what I got for you guys though. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.